much volume and intensity, and what's the difference between our absolute load and our relative intensity, and how can we create the adaptations we want without you being extremely fatigued, as what was the byproduct of the type of training he's been doing before. And all the other types of training he was doing was also, of course, very fatiguing.
Yeah, man. I get it that you are on podcasts which are like really technical, but I'm like more in the general things, I think. Like for example, I have a coffee sponsor like for 2 weeks, Isabi Coffee, and she's the first German female-powered coffee brand. So her grandmother in Brazil has a field, and then it comes to Berlin, and then it's all women. It's all women. And I thought, because I'm in a functional fitness CrossFit space, and that's so fitting for me because the community is so welcoming to female athletes and to strengths in women. So, and I wonder, how many female clients do you have? Can you give a percentage or like a feeling?
I can't give a percentage, but I think feeling wise, it's probably more than 50%. But I think that's quite normal for personal training in general in Denmark.
Oh, really?
But I may be wrong. But at least 50% is female clients.
Wow. I would have guessed like 60-40 with like men. That really surprised me. Yeah. Is it like are physically strong women like socially accepted in Denmark? How is it seen in the public?
I may be living in a bit of a bubble, but
we all do.
But with the people I socialize with, it's very normal. And it's something but it doesn't matter if you're strong or not, but we empower people to be as they want to be. And if that means a lot of that, there may be often. I remember when I started training, like back in the days, it wasn't normal for a lot of women to want to train their chest, for example, do like upper body pressing and train arms and stuff. But the last maybe 3, 4, 5 years, a lot of my female clients, they come with an expectation of wanting to train their upper body as well. And even if they don't, we always incorporate it in our programming, and there's never really anyone who questions why we're doing it. It's just like we're training everything in a mind as a holistic approach. So I think that's cool.
Yeah, me too. I'm a big like advocate of that thought. Like, and I love that about CrossFit and a functional fitness, that it like encourages women to be stronger and to experience all this stuff. And I think, like, I'm from Germany, and in my mind, it's like the further you go up north, the more accepted it is in the public. Like, I don't know, like places like Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Iceland for sure. Like first, they're really open, and there's not a single woman like which is being taught you can't do this, you can't look like that, or you have to be like in the kitchen or whatever. Like, and I feel like the further you go up north, the better it gets. So I guess Denmark is in between all the Nordics and Germany, so it gets a little bit better, but not as good as up there.
I think we're basically the same as Norway. Maybe not as much as Sweden. They're very progressive in that front, but definitely the same as Norway and maybe Germany. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I hope so. It's getting better in Germany, but still not where I would like it to be. But man, you said since you started, when did you start like getting into this space, and why?
I've been training my entire life, well, since I was a teenager, but I started using resistance training and conditioning and stuff when I started working as a physical therapist.
Mm.
And since the beginning, that's always been my go-to approach, because that's what I always like. That's what I've done. That's what I like, and that's what I believe in. Um, and then at one point, I started my own space with my partner back in late April 2008.
Oh, that's back in the day.
Yeah, so almost 5 years. That's when we started calling it more like personal training. Like, we have training in our name. We don't really have like any, like, it doesn't say Nordic physical therapy and treatment or whatever. It's people
Mhm.
that come with an expectation of training, because that's what we that's what we do.
Oh wow, 2008. Where and are you based in Copenhagen now?
Yeah.
Did you grow up there?
Yes, born and raised.
Ooh, wow.
So
I
I've been
really
living
like
the same place my entire life. Again, speaking of living in a small bubble, um, but I really like it here. It's a great place, and we at our gym, because it's Copenhagen, we have a lot of foreigners, people coming from abroad, different types of cultures, people just working here in Copenhagen or moving here, which gives a good vibe. Now you talked about, like, we have a lot of good mix of female and male clients, but we also have a huge mix of different nationalities and cultures and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's pretty cool as well.
Yeah, I really like Copenhagen. Like I was there 2 years ago with my girlfriend. We had a camper then at that place, and I think it was the second or third lockdown. I don't really remember. But then we drove to Copenhagen and Denmark, and it was really beautiful. Do
Yeah.
you know the what was that beach? What's that beach name? Like Kastrup Beach? Can
It's
it be?
probably called Amager Beach, but it's close to Kastrup. I live. That's where I live,
Yeah.
basically. And our
Oh,
gym is
really?
it's a 2 minute walk, and then you're basically in the ocean.
Yeah. Oh, that's really beautiful. Do you know that there was this place where we stand by? It was like an open bath, like out of wood into the ocean where you
Yeah,
can jump into, and I think it's
it's called
called Castro.
Helgoland.
Yeah, I think so.
Yes.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah. My grandfather, he's been a member of that place for more than 50 years.
Oh,
So
really?
it's yeah,
It's that old? Wow.
it's that old, yeah. But they like they work on it, like, going forward. So
Wow. That was a really beautiful place.
yeah,
And you born and raised there. What sports did you play when you grew up?
primarily football. Yeah.
Like soccer, football, or American football?
Like soccer, football, yeah.
Yeah, like
Not American.
all the Europeans do that.
Yeah, I believe it's our national sport here as well. Um, but I did a bit of everything, but soccer or football is what I did for the longest.
Do you remember the reason why you started doing strength training?
I believe I was introduced to it playing football. So we had like a gym, like a pretty good gym facility at the club I played in. So I always went to the gym before practice and after practice, because and then, like most people who get into training, who was into sport, they kind of enjoyed the training bit more than the competitiveness, maybe.
Yeah.
Um, so the same story as a lot of other people who go down the road of being a trainer or a coach or whatever.
That's pretty interesting for me because like in Germany, when you play soccer or and football, you don't really go into the weight room. Like all the training, I don't know how it is in the higher leagues. I guess a little bit better, but like in the minor leagues, when you play soccer, the training is just like a lot of conditioning and not really like strength based.
No, yeah, there's a lot of coaches, I think, back in the days at least, believe that you get slower from doing too much conditioning work and all that kind of stuff. And those traditions, I think they carry on, even though we have quite a bit of literature showing that it can like in the modern, like here in the more modern days, I know a lot of also on Instagram, and a lot of my colleagues here in Denmark, they're like specializing in training football players, for example, and it's always strength and conditioning work and testing and doing like Nordic hamstring curls and making sure they stay injury free and all that kind of stuff through resistance training. So that's cool as well. The whole performance part and the injury prevention part. It's not something we do a whole lot. Me and my partner, we are actually we have like this sports physiotherapy course we went through, so we know a bit about it. But and we have some athletes at our gym, but it's not really something we're specializing in. But
yeah.
Yeah.
What would you say are the most of your clients come from?
Like where they come from in terms of how they find us, or
Like, are there basically most of them like from the functional fitness world, or are there some MMA guys or soccer players, or
no? Like even though our name is like we have performance in our name, it's not. We don't really specialize in athletes at all. Most of our clients is just like regular gym, like general population. We have quite a bit of people who've never really been to a gym before, and because of the fact that like we've been doing this for quite a bit, so we have a lot of testimonials and like, referrals coming in just from word of mouth. But it's actually a pretty mellow gym environment. We have some ground set rules to make sure that everyone feels welcome and it's not too intimidating. It's not like it's Planet Fitness or anything, but we've been to like we train in every gym in the local area, and we've been a lot of places, and we really put a lot of thought into how do we create an environment where someone who's, let's just say, a games athlete, now we're talking functional fitness sport, to someone who's never been in a gym before, that might be a little bit intimidated by the thought, or they maybe tried training at bigger global gyms, but wasn't really feeling it and didn't feel included or welcomed. I think finding that balance has been something we've really focused on, where everyone feel like you can have someone who's like elite power, elite level in training besides or using the same machine as someone who's completely new, and they're socializing without it being, but with it still being performance driven. Like we're going for adaptations and getting better and stronger. So it's not like just drinking coffee and shooting the like, yeah. It's I think we found a good place in terms of having that balance. So mostly general population, yeah. To answer your question.
Yeah, but that's a really good point, because I think that's really important. Like, and that's also when I think about it, like if you go into the global gym, you're so on your own because everyone's just doing their things. And then if you go into a CrossFit box, it's the complete opposite. Like you're in a class, you have to basically like communicate with all the others and stuff. And like it's on the other side of the spectrum. And I can only imagine, like, either way, it's going to be intimidating for people to go to. So finding that balance is like really important, I think.
Yeah. And we're probably somewhere in between.
Yeah.
That like community-based global, like community-based CrossFit box, and just a more like global type gym. And also we're like, it's a personal training space, so it's not a normal gym per se where you can just
Yeah.
go and train.
And how many trainers do you have? How many coaches?
We are 3 trainers total.
3 trainers?
Yeah. We may be looking at expanding that at some place or sometime, but man, it's difficult to really, if you're a bit of a perfectionist, and our model is like, we're the service industry, and it's like a bit of a guru business, quote unquote, if you want to. Like, that's why people, they come because they know who we are and they want to
Yeah.
train with us. Basically, we do have a brand, but it's still, we build like a brand on quality. So for me at least, it's been hard to focus on expanding that, like, horizontally, in terms of getting more coaches and all that kind of stuff. But it's something I'm trying to create a model on how to, because I know people are interested, and a huge part of my client base is personal trainers, people who are interested in, like, mentoring. So definitely there is a possibility of that, but we're not, like with everything else we've done in our business, we are not rushing anything. Just,
Yeah.
like, I believe in slow is fast, and make sure that we can keep the quality high, because that's what we are selling. It's quality training.
So what I'm hearing, you could have like maybe a lot of more clients, but because you're like 3 people, it's not possible to onboard everybody, because you're not rushing with like getting more coaches on, because that process, I guess it's gonna be really hard. Like, you don't want to rush it, and you don't want to get someone in where you, like, maybe a month later you feel like, oh, that was not the right choice.
Yeah, at least, like, I think it's, for us at least, and for me, it's been very easy to, like, grow the calendar vertically, just getting more and more busy, getting more and more clients. But I also realized that a lot of trainers, they have the problem of not being able to like grow and get enough clients. So for me, it's been, the last maybe 2 years, it's been a challenge to learn how to drop down, like, vertically, and then integrate everything more horizontally in terms of how to help more people, with spending less, like finding a perfect balance between the two. And it's still, for me, something I'm trying to figure out where I need to be in that spectrum of am I just gonna, because if I'm not training clients on the floor, I'm missing it. Like, I still, I know I need a bit of that in my life. It gives me some energy. But being, like, as we used to, some years back, just having 10 clients on one day, it becomes too much. So it's, again, that perfect balance between what you want to work on, and it's hard to find that one thing sometimes.
What would you say is the cap, like, of number of people you could have as clients for one coach, where it gets difficult?
Well, it may be easier to, if it's only one-on-one personal training. It may be easier to just think in terms of how many hours per week, because some clients may only come in once a week, some maybe 2, and some maybe 3 or even 4. But I would say, for me at least, as I've gotten a little bit older, if I had 6 clients one day, I'm pretty beat. When I was back in the days, I could definitely do more. But I come from a background of physical therapy, where it was very normal to have at least, like, maybe 16 patients in one day, and no matter how much you want to help, and you want to be there and empathize with people and listen to everything they have to say and stay interested. It's quite difficult when you have so many clients. So what we wanted to do is just have less clients, but so at least an hour per client, and create an environment that was totally different from what we were used to working in the like healthcare system. Because I truly believe that a lot of people, that's what people often need. They don't need a 20-minute appointment. They need an hour, 1, 2, 3 times a week with someone they entrust. You can help them stay on track with their goals, and or just talk for an hour or whatever they might need.
Yeah, I think so too. Like in the healthcare system, was it like basically like for doctors that they know, okay, this person needs probably a little bit more time, but I have like 5 clients out there, so I have to rush through it.
So I was working in the private sector, but it's a bit intertwined here in Denmark, and yeah, it's very driven like I'm not sure how to say it, but seeing a lot of clients is just it's just not for me, and it's and you can see how when you have like a healthcare system that's very pressed on how much time you can give clients, you can only focus on the one main like biological problem you have to solve. You don't have time to look at the person in a psychosocial context, so to speak, and you need time to do that. And the challenge is, again, finding a balance, whereas we can help enough people, because if one extreme would be just have like one client, for example, your prices would have to be extremely high, but you can really help that person a lot. And then on the other spectrum, we have where you don't have any time because you have so many clients, and a lot of people will be maybe get less of your attention. But finding a place where everyone can feel like they have what it needs to invest in our help, for example.
Yeah, for sure. Man, the reason why I have you on at all is because I had Andre Houdet on a few weeks back, and at the end of the show, I always ask the people which guests I should have on, and he was like, "Yeah, you have to get him on. He changed my life." And yeah, I was like, "Okay, I'm checking this guy out," and yeah, I wonder how did you connect with Andre, and what was this journey all about?
Yeah, so all the CrossFit podcasts I'm on is because of Andre, and like with all the clients I meet, he of course also changed a lot of things in my life. He's very vocal about the work we've done together, and I will always be thankful for him as a person, and he's a hard worker. I've learned a lot of things for him, not only just as a person or like business wise, and also in training, like details and in programming and other perspectives. But Andre had as you may have talked to him about, he did have quite a few bit of quote unquote overuse injuries, like elbows, knees, often really hit that glass ceiling of progression like pretty fast, because he's a very hard worker. And I feel like there has been a tendency to just throw more and more volume and training his way, and he will do it if he believes he will get better, or he's told that's what he has to do to get better. So I was training So he trains with Julian, another very good CrossFitter in Denmark, big, tall guy. And he's on his team now. And he's also a trainer at No Shortcuts. I trained his wife actually, and then
Oh,
I
okay.
think that's how. And I've saw Andre on Instagram, very impressed with like his. He was like power cleaning 165 or something, and everyone was like very impressed with this guy before he even contacted me. And then one day he sent me a voice message because he has been living in Dubai, and all clients I have coming from Dubai or around that area, they always use voice message. I don't know, that's how they do there. Wanted to know if I could help him out a bit, and so he saw. I think he saw it as quite of like a Hail Mary. Tried something completely different because I'm not a CrossFit coach at all. Of course, the last couple of years I've learned a lot from working with CrossFit athletes from different levels. But he was interested in hearing if I could help him get stronger because he heard good things from his friend's fiance, wife, sorry. And so we had a chat, and I think there was something that became apparent for me quite quickly, just in terms of like where we could try to quote unquote, I'm not going to say optimize, but I'm saying it anyway, optimize and change things a bit to make sure he gets back on a baseline where he can keep progressing, but progress much more slowly because he has an extreme mindset. But again, if he gets the real mindset, but still in an extreme form because he is the kind of person he is, I know he would get very good. So we changed a lot of the work he does to more machine-based kind of stuff. Spent a lot of time improving his exercise, the way he executes his exercises, and then slowly introducing all the different principles in terms of how much frequency do we need to have and how much volume and intensity, and what's the difference between our absolute load and our relative intensity, and how can we create the adaptations we want without you being extremely fatigued, as what was the byproduct of the type of training he's been doing before. And all the other types of training he was doing was also, of course, very fatiguing because it's CrossFit. It's the sport of a lot of work, a lot of contractions all the time. So that was basically what we did. And I remember him telling me that after I sent him, I think it was the second block of training, I had introduced some accommodating resistance with bands and all that kind of stuff. And he had tried that before previously, where he didn't really like it. It was too complicated, but he saw some very good results. And since then, I think he's been hooked. And again, that's the same principle as with a lot of like everyone you work with. If you get off to a good start, and of course they trust the process and they do what you're told, but then it's easier to work together going forward. So he's
for sure, yeah.
And he's, well, as most people who know who Andre is, they know he's a great mover, and his technique might be, if not the best, and one of the best at the games level. So just like learning how to control his fatigue levels and get better at just creating, like expressing his strength, made a huge difference quite quickly. Like normally you wouldn't see a games athlete or someone as hit at his level take his one rep max, more than his one rep max in front squat, and do 4 reps with it under fatigue. But he did that, and so that was the rest was just history. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool story. Like, I guess it's for the most CrossFit athletes at that level, it's like the volume is pretty much the big thing, like in my eyes. Like from what I'm hearing, you had to make him believe that taking a step back is going to lead into 2 steps forward in the future.
Yeah, that's definitely one way to put it. But he was a believer from the beginning. Like I don't think I've ever seen anyone being so took everything very seriously, and he had a clear mindset from first day, just telling me he was going to go to the games and all that kind of stuff. And he was going to trust the process and do whatever I imposed on him. But still, and this is a very important part of not only Andre but everyone else. Like progress is being able to auto regulate a bit on your own, because he was training alone when he was like, we had sessions together, but he has a lot of sessions. Learning what it means to, and you can speak about this as being like using RPE or RIR or anything else, how to measure like your subjective intensities, all that kind of stuff. Not being too focused on the progressive overloading in terms of how much load you're using, but getting better at learning how do I measure the relative intensity, and when do I have good days, and which days do I have to perform the best. So even though I often I prescribe like percentage wise, or if you use RPE, I'm not sure if you know about like the RPE charts you can use. Okay, so if, for example, you have a top set of back squat and it says it should be an RPE of 3, just looking at the chart, you can see what percentage should I be around with that rep range. But see it as a range. Again, if it says you should use 150 kilos, I don't really mind if you only use 145. If you know yourself well enough that that's what you have to do to make sure the bar is not moving too slowly and it becomes an RPE 9 or whatever. And again, if you have days where you can take that progression and you've recovered well enough from your previous work to be able to do 145, that's also okay with me. But make sure that you look forward in terms of, okay, this training phase, I have to finish stronger than when I started. I'm not supposed to be the strongest in the beginning of a training block. I think that's a problem a lot of people have. They have to their top sets have to be increased with 5 kilos every single week, but that shouldn't really be something you should. If you're able to do that, you're a beginner often. So learning and seeing patterns in okay, I can maybe make that 5 kilo jump from week 1 to week 2, or maybe make a smaller jump from week 1 to week 2, and then a more aggressive one as I get closer to the end of the block. There are so many different ways to do it, and at his level, it's also like it could be okay to maybe have almost the same weight on each top set, but then we progress the work we're doing afterwards in terms of like the back off sets or the assistance work and all that kind of stuff. It's just you need to make sure, and I heard this from Killian Hamilton from Prescript. He talked about like if you use all the other variables in how to progressively overload or overstimulus, they call it, you have a much longer runway of progressions before you hit that glass ceiling in terms of how much load can you use. I'm not really interested in you having that 12-week mindset where, okay, in 12 weeks, I want your squat to go from 150 to 180. Like that may be very sensationalized. And you see that on Instagram every once in a while and pat on the shoulders. That's very great. But you always see a big drop afterwards. I much more prefer that after this 12-week block, you have increased, let's say, just 2.5 or 5 kilos, but you can do it comfortably and you're not beat up, because remember, you have a lot of other things you have to be able to do, and you don't necessarily have to peak. And this one also one thing that Andre told me, he's not interested in peaking in one season for the games. He's interested in continue to get better and get to the games multiple times, because those are the athletes he looks up to, what is they call like the guys who've been there several times in a row. instead of just coming out of nowhere, performing well, and then we never see them again. He was interested in being a true quote unquote games athlete who's like has to be there every time, and that's the mindset you often need. You need to like progressively get a little bit better every single day, instead of focus on aggressive progressions and then falling back down because of injury or burnout, mentally or physically or whatever. So yeah.
Man, so many avenues I want to dive in.
Yeah, that was a lot.
But yeah, when I had him on, it was obvious to me that he has a really like focused mindset. When he is like setting a goal, he commits to it. Like I see this all the time, like in my box or something, when people train in the open gym, for example, and they hop on a training protocol for like 3 weeks, and oh, that's not for me, I try something else, and they hop from that and to that and that. That's not Andre. When he like setting a goal, he's like committing to it, and he's
definitely.
and he's trusting the process, like really.
Yeah. He's a very impressive person, and because people know him, I often use him as a way to show people how, if I have some younger guys who want to get good at something, it could be CrossFit, it could be something else, and they've been trying for, let's say, 2-3 years, but they haven't really breaking through or whatever. Looking at Andre's career, where he just never really gave up. He had 6 years trying to go to the games, but it didn't really work out. But he was constantly getting better, and he took every wins and every failures. He used that to become. He reflected on it and became a better athlete, and of course also a better coach moving forward. So everything you experience now it can help you down the road instead of just giving up, and that can be very difficult when you compare yourself to, let's say, you see those 17 and 18-year-old games athletes, where you're like, how is that even possible?
Yeah, that's insane.
But again, that's their journey, and everyone is different. So I can use them as an example in terms also when people, they feel like, okay, I may be experiencing pain and hitting plateaus, all that kind of stuff, showing how the ceiling is so much further, but this is just where you are now, and you may have like pain can be sustained for a long time, and then it could go away all of a sudden. I really enjoy the part of my work where I keep making sure that people don't give up on their dreams because they may be having issues with their shoulder for a year or something. We can't just fix stuff, but we can say with a lot of confidence that it should get better down the road just because of natural history or whatever. So that's the whole part of that's that's the coaching part that doesn't have a whole lot to do with the sets and reps and rest periods and all that kind of stuff, which is also like very important, just zooming out and giving people a perspective, and then being able to use someone like Andre as an example, because people know him, he's as successful as he is, can sometimes help quite a bit.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like this like persistence and trusting the process is like a huge difference maker at that level of the sport. Like, for example, I had Andrea Solberg on. She's an athlete from Norway, and she told me that she's not having like strength PRs like in her squats and like lifts for 4 years. She did not break her PRs, but she trusted the process, and now is the year where she finally gets some PRs and is getting stronger. Like, I feel like at that level, like persistency is really a key element to succeed in the sport.
Yeah, and then also maybe getting some outside help in terms of looking at, okay, how do I take those 2 or 3 steps backwards, to be able to give myself again a long runway of progression where I get to a point maybe in a year or so where I can I can continue to make those new PRs, but I'm not beat up by the PRs, if that makes sense. It's just now I can use my PR, but it feels I'm comfortable. I have a good example is also a no shortcuts athlete called Max Butchman. He's German, and he's also like he because he works like he follows Andre's program, and he's a follower of Andre, what you want to call it. He again knows it's about following the plan, not getting discouraged, all that kind of stuff. Also in terms of where you are, because when you look up to someone that's stronger than you, it can be very you want to use the same type of weights and all that kind of stuff. You want to be on their level. Started out doing doubles at 125. That's 9 months ago, and just slowly progressing forward. He's now doing doubles at 172.5, but it's like RPE 7.
Ooh, man.
But instead of challenging it, and I believe he could do 200, for example, for a single, but we're not testing it. There's no need to do it. If it comes up in competition, I would just be glad for him to do it at the competition. But there's a huge cost, and there's a risk of not hitting it, and then mentally it's going to fuck you up a bit. But and then he did 18 reps at 140 at competition recently, where he feel like that was his like 5 rep max 9 months ago. But again, it's just zooming back out and saying, okay, how do we get stronger in 1 year instead of doing a 12-week strength phase, and then teaching the client that, okay, we need to build a base of strength, and especially hypertrophy, like building muscle, because that's the thing that's going to drive your potential to get stronger the most. So I like to start people out with doing what is called, like, we call it hypertrophy phases, or muscle building phases, or whatever you want to call it, and then introduce some practice with heavy weights, like doing singles, doubles, triples, and we may do that only like for a year, just focus on building muscle, and then we transition more over to what we call more neurologically based training, more sets, lower rep ranges, higher intensities, instead of trying to build, like, really focus on building that fundament. And if you can do that earlier in your career, that's perfect. But if let's say you are a little bit older, I still believe it's a good investment to make, to try to do a lot of hypertrophy work. That's what I've talked a lot about on previous podcasts with other guys. That's that approach to taking your hypertrophy training seriously, instead of it just being 3 sets of 15 of like dumbbell chest press at the end of your training when you're already fatigued, and it's not really going to give you anything else than a pump and more fatigue. So yeah, really learning how to create those adaptations to make sure you are better placed in terms of how to get stronger down the line. But again, it's like as we are as humans, it's hard for us to look that far forward. It's the same as when you talk about investments, all that kind of stuff. We know that if we start with the simple investments now, putting everything into just funds and whatever, we will have a massive amount of growth.
In 40 years, it's going to pay out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's maybe a little bit longer time frame, but it's
I want that sweet thing in next week.
Yeah, I want to buy the Tesla stuff now, instead of focusing on just broadening your base of your portfolio, so to speak, just to use a term that a lot of people may understand a little bit better.
No, it's like translates over to so many things, like in life and in business and stuff.
Yeah,
like, speaking of that, I just went there in my mind, like, was it an advantage that Andre is his own coach? Like, with all the volume he does, was that an advantage, like, to put your work into that a lot of sessions and stuff?
the biggest challenge working with CrossFit athletes is the fact that they have a lot of other stuff going on.
Yeah.
Thankfully, again, the reason why Andre has so much success is because he's very good at programming, and it has been very hard for him. He has to use a lot of his mental energy in programming, all that kind of stuff. But it has again, it has paid out by doing that for a couple of years now, because he's gotten way better at it. He knows himself a lot better. And it's a huge challenge programming for yourself. So again, that's something I'm extremely impressed with him. So at the beginning, it was very like he had to program around what I do, because I don't know a lot about CrossFit. And then as we go further down the line, it's about learning the principles of intensity, volume, all that kind of stuff, as it relates to strength and hypertrophy. He invested in equipment. He got a hack squat, cables, all that kind of stuff. Again, makes it a lot easier to implement the systems I like to use in his program. That gives him that small advantage all the time to keep making progressions and not being too fatigued, all that kind of stuff. But with and then I have some some clients who follow No Shortcuts, Andre's programming, who wants to have a bit more focus on their strength if they feel like that's a weakness. So a bit of like an add-on to the program. So they follow the strength work I provide, and that functions very well. I have other people who follow other programs, so they try. I had one guy from England who we just who had he saw the need to build more muscle. For example, he had a skinny frame. He wasn't very big, but he wanted to get to the highest level possible. And so he just said, okay, I'm still gonna follow a lot of he was also like a No Shortcuts follower, but he did less of the CrossFit work and really focused for a year on building muscle and strength, and just make sure he still had the skills of doing muscle ups and double unders, all that kind of stuff. You don't become a less good athlete from not pushing the aerobic stuff as much for a year and really focus on getting stronger, building some muscle, and then going back into it. You're going to get those adaptations again pretty fast, but you have a huge advantage in terms of your success the next year, for example.
Yeah.
But that can be very difficult for someone who wants to get better at everything. And again, that's sometimes so in programming we do program in blocks, but you can also see that if you have like a block of training, then you can see, if you see vertically, you can put like, if strength has this much focus, then your aerobic conditioning has to have a little bit less, and then you can have some more technique work. Like you look horizontally, but see, you can only fit so much in vertically. If you're a beginner, you can fit in everything because it doesn't really fatigue you at all. Yep. But you have to make sure that, okay, you can also see it like if you make a year plan, the first part of the year, or 1/4 of the year, for example, is going to be very strength and hypertrophy based, not a lot of skill work or conditioning or CrossFit work. And then as you get closer and closer to, let's just say, the open season or whenever you want to peak, you remove some of the hypertrophy stuff because that's hard to recover from. And then you up maybe the strength work and your more CrossFit specific work. And then if you get even closer, you still have your strength work, but very low volume just to maintain. And you're in a good position to it's just basic like periodization for sports, like but I just feel like it's a bit of a forgotten thing in CrossFit, or maybe it's just not programmed very well. Seeing like CrossFit athletes doing 3 sets of 20 like heel elevated safety bar squats or something crazy and walking lunges, where they already have the best like strength endurance. Maybe we should just focus on putting them over in something like a hack squat, which I love. That's way less fatiguing from like a global perspective, but you get a lot of tension in your quads, so they're going to grow, but you're not killing yourself while doing it. That's what they're experts on, like like the hard
Yeah.
stuff, like the things that hurts globally. uh, I don't think that's where we need to focus that much on, because they have that.
Yeah, I think so. Would you say that strength is the most difficult component in our sport to build if you don't have it?
Mm, not really. I just think that sometimes investing the time in having that base is worth a lot. So and that's why I also have a lot of my clients who are CrossFitters. They are members of more like global type stuff, or they found like a powerlifting space where they have machines and stuff they can use, because it complements their goal of building muscle as an investment to the next season, for example, very well. And then there are, and then there may be some things in how CrossFit programs are done that makes it a little bit difficult to get stronger without hitting that glass ceiling very early on and plateauing, which is that we know that frequency is a very good tool for getting stronger in a specific lift. So that's why we take like the Olympic lifting type approach, or powerlifting, whatever, where we squat 3-4 times a week, which just ends up creating a whole lot of junk volume, because we're also doing a whole lot of other stuff. We have to, it's like we're forgetting all the other stuff you have to do in the entire volume equation. And that's why I prefer to have a lower frequency, just make sure the things that we do are high quality, and finding the perfect balance of the best possible balance of volume and intensity and frequency. And that's what, if I just see sometimes that's being not done very well,
Are there
in my
some
opinion.
other, yeah, other movements though where you feel like, oh, there are a must do in a weekly basis?
um, um like not really a must do. I have like a depending on how many times a week you're dedicating on your training, we have, of course, like templates in terms of how to do a training split, for example. And no matter if the frequency of per muscle group or whatever is 1 or is 2 or 3, we have like basic movement patterns we want to work. Just like if you if you learn from someone like Stefan Cousseau, who's maybe one of the more popular in terms of program design and periodization. He has like his 8 primary exercises. We have a press vertically, horizontally, and we have dips, and we have rows and different times of like we have chin ups, all that kind of stuff. We have squatting pattern, hip hinge pattern, all that kind of stuff. So that has to be trained. But I don't see there anything that has to be trained. I think we have to, it's more the intensity side that has to be, we have to control. Some athletes, if they touch above 80% of the 1 rep max, that may fatigue them a whole lot. Whereas others, they can hit 90% and above quite frequently without it that really affecting them. That's just a thing you have to learn down the line. And I just prefer with CrossFitters just not really going up there as often, but just focus on the intent of the movement instead. But yeah, sure, there are stuff that's almost always incorporated in our training. Besides the big lifts, I really like having a lot of arm work, shoulder work, which people may look at as it looks like vanity exercises for bodybuilding or whatever. But getting stronger in different positions, and just getting more resilient in your shoulders, elbow, all that kind of stuff is also a good investment in in your CrossFit competition endeavors and all that kind of stuff. So
do you think that's a problem in the mindset that often those like exercises are not seen as like these are not functional movements, this is just like bodybuilding in our space?
Yeah, and it's funny because so yeah, it's like isolation work is not something we see a whole lot in CrossFit, like if you see it from like a broad perspective on a group level. There may be some curls and stuff at the end, but again, it's like 3 sets of 15 of like a dumbbell exercise that may not be, and the intent is not there. People want to go home and all that kind of stuff. But if you change the way you look at stuff to say, let's say the thing that's limiting you in your quote unquote functional exercise, let's say it's a squat. The thing that's limiting you is your quad strength, or you have a feeling, or your coach says that they can see that it seems like your quad strength is what's lacking when we get to percentages above 85, 90% or whatever. We could just continue doing squats and telling the client to use your quads, but we all know that if when you go people try that sometimes, changing the technique at lower intensity. So we do 50% and I'll teach you how to move the knees forward and use the quads and all that kind of stuff. That may work, but it doesn't really translate to 85+%, because as we go above 90, your technique changes no matter what. So your nervous system is going to use what's easiest and what it's most used to using. So we need to find an exercise where the limiter is your quads, and that could be for like hypertrophy work and or your strength work. So having access to something like a hack squat where you cannot shoot your hips back, for example, you have to quote unquote overload or overstimulus the quads, having leg extension, all that kind of stuff. Have that for quite a period of time while still working on your squat technique maybe, and then reversing that at one point where you transition from hypertrophy to strength, where you then have your high intensities on your squat, and then you lower the intensities but up the reps on your hack squat leg extension work, just to keep those hypertrophy adaptations, or maybe keep building on those, but change your emphasis more to the strength stuff, and carry over the new muscle tissue you build and your new ability to activate your high threshold motor units in your quads over to a complex exercise like a squat. And I see it, and also again using Andre as an example, we did that type of stuff, like 12 weeks of hack squatting, no back squatting besides his Olympic weightlifting. Comes back to the back squat, takes a week or two just to get comfortable with the squat pattern, and then like huge PRs. And we see that with a lot of other people as well. And we also see people who they maybe do like recreational CrossFit, like they just enjoy going to CrossFit gyms, the community style of things, but they actually really, if they go to just do their strength training, they prefer doing it on a machine because it maybe hurts less, or it's more, it doesn't take quite as much warm up. If you have manual labor where you feel tired in your back after a long day of work, or been sitting all day at the computer, it may be easier just to go into a machine than having to like hold a barbell on your back. Again, everyone is extremely different, but that's just what we often see in our gym. We have the option of, and we're biased maybe against machines because we like them, but we have the options of using the barbells, all that kind of stuff, but people tend to prefer doing machine stuff. Yeah.
And it's I think that's really important. I think that's really important. Like I'm guilty myself. Like I had to get that thought out of my head. Like this is an isolation movement. That's not what I'm supposed to do. But sometimes it really helps. Like you said, like building strength in some muscles. You're not that engaging in a fluid movement as much.
All your just think all your joints, all your muscles. There are some of the entire there are parts of the entire system. So improving one thing can at least help the bigger movement patterns you have to perform. And it doesn't really have to be a whole lot. You just have to learn how to how to train intensively enough on those exercises. I see a huge tendency on throwing like 5 sets of 15 or something on isolation, using volume as a way to create adaptations instead of just doing 2 sets of 6 to 8, where we really push um, on the intensity, like the intensity and the intent on the exercise. Then you have a little bit of volume. It's not going to fatigue you a whole lot, but you get stronger and better at using those muscles, and you're going to grow from it as well. That's the
For
practical
sure.
side of it. That's is also why we have a lot of trainers coming by. We have people had people fly in from both places like Ireland, Germany lately, to learn like the setup execution stuff, because that's where people may become interested in how to use this. They try to apply it, but it doesn't really work, and people may not be completely pleased with how it feels and all that kind of stuff. So getting help from someone who practices a whole lot can give you a huge advantage really quickly in terms of how to help your clients um, perform like machine work and isolation stuff and all that kind of
Yep.
things.
But I think on the other side, like at the top level, like the openness to other to other training protocols and like stuff is it's really high. Like you see all the time like athletes going to a strength coach, to a gymnastic coach, or just go like Matt Fraser went to his local track team to get better at like running. That's
Yeah,
insane. And got beat by like teenagers all the
yeah,
time just to get better. So the willingness to learn from other people is like really high at the top level.
yeah. Again, it's the same as if you have like leaders in corporate world, for example, like entrepreneurs. We
Yeah.
we know that if I just pay someone who has spent the most of his career life getting very good at this one thing I want to learn, I can learn it very quickly, instead of me trying to micromanage everything myself and learn that entire process. It wouldn't really be possible without me using the focus on the main stuff.
Yeah.
So again, that's one way. Again, we're using a lot of examples today, but it's the same principle.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Like when you started at 2008, when
18.
18, I
Oh
just
yeah,
thought
yeah, yeah.
2008, man.
Oh no, no, I'm not that old.
Do you remember though? Do you remember the first time where you heard or seen like CrossFit and what you thought about it initially?
I can't remember when, but I think almost like 8 or 10 years ago, I actually did a bit of CrossFit, because I had friends doing it. Actually competed in a competition where we
Oh,
had
really?
at least the best in Denmark at the time, competing. We were like pretty decent, I would say. So I do have some knowledge and I've been following the sport a bit. I think it's fun to see the progress they've made. It's
Yep.
pretty crazy actually. So I really like CrossFit. It's just like me again getting. I use so much of my focus on what I do in terms of like my business and training people all that kind of. So the way I train has just changed. It's more simplistic. I have like a few exercises I perform, and I perform them well, instead of trying to get very good at a lot of
Yep.
things.
Are you when you say you follow this, but are you bummed that Andre is going team this year, or are you? Yeah, that's exactly the thing which is gonna move the needle the next year.
I think that it's like in the context, taken in context of where he is in his life now. I think it was the right choice, and as from what I can see when they're training together on the team, I think they're making each other a whole lot better. Um, so from a whole lot of different perspectives, I believe it's a good choice. And if he feels it's the right choice, I know it's the right choice. but I'm excited to see him come back as an individual again. And you can see from everything he posts and all that kind of, like they just both him and Julian, and they just keep getting stronger, a little bit stronger all the time.
Yeah, man. I wanted to like keep it like on a base level, but we dived into a lot of things which I didn't thought we dive into.
Yeah.
So it got mildly like complex, but I really like it,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
I think thank you for coming on. I think that was like pretty interesting and good talk, man.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for having me.